things to like, make you a 4D player, essentially.
Right. So it's simple practices that when implemented will have big impact on your game. And
like,
you as a player, right? That's the idea. What little things can I do? And just speaking from experience, adding a little bit of color commentary to active actions that your character is doing really helps. It helps. It's inspiring for the game master too. So if you think of you're running a game and the player is just adding a little bit of description to each of their actions, just a little bit. It's not overboard. It's just a little bit.
Flair, a little bit of flair.
It's just that flair. It's just that little bit of spice, right? Otherwise, you risk becoming just bland. You don't want to be bland.
Don't want to be bland. You need some extra salt and pepper on that.
Just garlic, a little bit. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. In some cases, it's just as simple as saying where you're pointing the weapon that you're holding.
It's that easy.
It can be that easy, and even just something small like that is just enough meat that you can. There's some meat on these bones. This is not just.
Even when you're swinging your weapon, it doesn't. You're not actually trying to take the guy's head off. I'm slicing at his neck, and then the game can go into a description of you like just nicking his neck and a little blood trickling out afterward. You're giving the GM inspiration by being more descriptive in your actions.
That's right. Just a little more description, like you say, and not so much description that you're assuming a dice roll that hasn't happened yet.
Exactly.
Because if you just say, I've always said, I swing my battle axe, I'm taking off his head. Well, you haven't rolled the dice yet.
Yeah.
What happens if you? But there's ways that you can do that. At neck level, 2 hands on the haft, I grunt, twisting my torso. I put all my weight behind this. Okay, great. Now roll the dice.
That's
and let it go. Right.
That's so you're just trying to. Man.
You're getting that. Okay, I'm going to rotate through the hip, and I'm getting all of it. Now and then I can roll a 1 or whatever the mechanic is. I could have an absolute failure of a roll. It doesn't. We don't have to retcon what my description was. I still swung for the fences.
You just missed. You spun around in the circle.
Yeah. So it's just, and it doesn't have to be long. You just a little bit. And
I like that description you did, though. I liked it.
You just so the game master then can take that cue and go with it and run with it. And it is possible to do too much of this, I think. So a little bit of a caution. If you're taking overly long on your turn by adding in all sorts of descriptions that are just too long, you're going to see people are going to be upset with you. Like, you don't want to do that.
I agree. And I think I was thinking about this for 3D. Let's just go for 4D role playing. Mm-hmm. Your first attack should be the most descriptive, and then the following one should be a little quicker. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. That's good advice. That is good advice.
Get everything real pumped up and juicy. Get the mind flowing for that first 10, 5 minutes or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that just a little bit of inserting in these descriptions, this color commentary, insert a little bit of the personality that you thought of for that character.
Yes.
Right? Is he brash? Is he reckless? Is he calculating? Is he a coward? Like on the first miss, do I back away? The tip of my sword starts to waver. I'm holding it in a high ready. Like maybe
because even if your guy's a coward, you're like, oh, I missed my attack. You start taking a couple steps back, but you at the last second you try to scare the guy. Jump forward.
When I say color commentary, it's not just narrating what my character's doing, and it's not just that. It's also those brief little, and I've seen you do this in your games. I think it's an excellent thing people can do to be more 4D. Remember that you're not alone. In most cases, you have someone else there. There's another character there. Why aren't you talking? You should be talking in character to that character. Yeah.
Yep.
Like so for example, in some games where somebody does something really heroic or out of the ordinary, in character, it would make sense to be impressed with that. Like say something about it. Or if I'm getting beat down by this opponent that we're up against, and they're just wrecking me, why am I not yelling out in character for help? You should be doing that sort of thing.
I like that. I like the after an action, like there's something can be said real quick, just to add to the scene.
Just add a little bit, and it should be
personality.
A lot.
I do that a lot.
Do that. Do the personality. You should be thinking of ways of using dialogue to communicate to the other characters, other players who are running characters themselves, what it is your guy is experiencing without having to tell them, my guy is scared now. No, that's not a 4D move.
Yeah.
If I want to show that I'm worried, I'm scared, I'm going to be like, I shiver a little bit, wipe some sweat from my brow,
Yeah.
eyes wide. What was that? Did you hear that? You got to have some of that improvisation that you're putting into it. You're not taking away the mechanics of the game. It's just adding that bit of improvisation.
That's that slow burn. Like, you have a good way of like adding like the nuances to things like that. I feel like I'm more audible. Like, instead of like, what do you say? You'll take two of your hands, you'll twist your torso, cleaving.
Yeah, like rotate through the hips.
I'll just be like, I take my sword with both hands and swing. I'm like, You
that's
get
okay.
Like the visual
I think
impact.
that's good.
I want to combine them though.
I think you can combine them. Yeah, and there's going to be style too. Like you can't. I'm not suggesting that when we're giving you this thought of, hey, if you want to get really into this 4D space, consider adding that color commentary. Yeah. But it's going to be different for everybody. Like, there's going to be. I'm not an accent guy. I'm just not. But others are.
I wish I was.
I wish I were, because if I did have that talent, I would use it. I'd use it a little bit.
Oh, you'd be too good.
And others will have a different thing, like you said. Like, maybe it's just the grunt, the sound effect.
I love sound effects. Not gonna lie.
The RPG is dumb. He's great at the sound effect side of things. He's just really good at it, and I think that adds a lot.
When he had that, he had some gun sound effect when he shot across the water, and I was like, "That is
literally so good.
That's literally the gun sound." I'm like, "How did you do that?"
If that's your thing, if you're good at that, then do that as part of your turn. You should be looking for opportunities to do that. It's going to get you more into your character. It's going to help the other players too, because they're going to see you doing your thing. They're going to have their thing, right? They're going to start doing their stuff.
Absolutely, man.
And then it starts going.
Like it's let you give example, because I feel like I'm the student here, and now you're the master.
Oh no, we're just figuring this out together. But
like when you leave a room, you'll say something. You won't be like, I go out of the room. You'll put a little flair on it.
Well, and the trick to that, if there is a trick to it, is just to think, okay, if I'm watching, most of the time when I'm playing a character, I'm trying to look through the character's eyes. But if I'm moving if I'm moving my character from one room to another or doing something, it's kind of helpful to picture that. Like, if I was a camera, a bird's eye camera, and I was watching this happen, what would it look like? Is there anything interesting happening? Sometimes there's not. And if there's nothing interesting happening, then okay, there's nothing interesting. But that's not the job necessarily of the game master or the dungeon master himself to make sure that every scene is interesting. That's my job too, as a player, to be looking for interesting things to do. So you walk out of the room. Okay, well, what are you doing? You walk out of the room. How do you walk out of the room? You saunter out of the room. You're like, the Conor McGregor kind of strut out of the room.
Yeah, a little strut. I strut out there.
Then, yeah, cool. Then you should probably say that, because then no one
my nose up at the bad guy. What do you got? You got something to say?
Maybe the trick is, like you said, like I like that. Maybe the trick is that you should, however you're imagining your character being, you should probably go that extra step to say that out loud, so that the other people at the table understand. Yeah. Don't take it for granted. Don't take it for granted that okay, yeah, you flick the cigarette away a certain way, right? Or you flick it where? You flick it at the corpse, like that's the last time this guy is going to cause us any trouble, right?
That's good.
That kind of, so if you want to, if I'm imagining that, if I have that in my head, the other players won't have that. So that's why that color commentary is good, because it puts it allows them to imagine it a little better too. Maybe not exactly the same as what I'm imagining, but closer, because I'm not assuming that they just can read my mind. This is how I'm doing it.
And I got a question. What would be too much description? Because there is.
I think it's a time-based thing too.
I agree with this.
And I really like your suggestion. Maybe the first interaction in a certain scene, there's a little more opportunity for description there. But if the action is becoming somewhat repetitive, then maybe it's time to change it up or keep that tight. Like
when fights become a slog, you can definitely feel like the creative juices
when it starts to become dull like that, then maybe it's just a signal that it's time to shake it up, do something crazy.
I agree with that. That's why one of our fights I just lost in our last game. I lost all patience, and I was like, I disengaged from the fight, and I want to observe all my surroundings so I could think of new stuff to do.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. Yeah, absolutely. But I also think that if you set a rule of thumb, I suppose you could say, is your turn should really be maybe 2 or 3 sentences most. So, and not run-on sentences. Try to keep it tight.
I agree with that.
But just like even if your first sentence is just where you are, what your character is doing, and then the next sentence really is well, is there any dialogue that I'm going to have here? If not, am I doing something that I want the other characters to know, or just the way I'm behaving? Do I want to give a hint to the other players? I try
to keep my dialogue to a minimum so everybody can say something, because I feel like someone starts talking too much. It's the same thing as a GM info dumping. After a couple sentences, I like zone out.
Yeah, it's a conversation, right? It should be a conversation, and a normal conversation. Yeah, we would just have a healthy back and forth.
Yeah,
it wouldn't just be me talking the whole time. You would say something, I'd say something, we'd say, like, it should be that kind. That's what I mean by dialogue, not just I'm going to now go through my 4-page backstory and tell you all the reasons.
And at a table, it's actually hard to get other people. You kind of have to goad them into talking and doing stuff. As if you ever watched our games, people will see that.
Yeah. And that's another topic that we're going to have to come over. Like, what do you do? That is because I do think that you have to have a degree of a harmony at the table, in that you're all trying to do similar things.
So let's go back to original topic, because we'll easily derail,
because we'll get derailed on that topic, because that's a big topic.
How to do something in 4D instead of 1D? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you walk? Like I said, how do you walk out of a room? How do you pull out your gun? I want to shoot this guy. Why don't you unlatch your holster and quick draw your gun, and you level it off at the guy's eye socket, and you a puff of smoke comes out of your gun as you fire it off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Or I think where this often breaks down is when it comes to magic systems, because to me, it's more of a 1D type thing to just read off the description on the character sheet. I cast this, or when can I do this, or like when can I do my super move thing.
Magic, you need cutting words, like I draw back my arm and a crackling bolt of lightning appears in my hand, and that's more 4D, because what I like about that is that you're not assuming that the listener, the other players, or anything like that, they automatically know what it is you're doing. You're just describing what they see, if they see anything at all. And I think that might be a good segue into, like, that's too much description. If I do, I get on my knees and I start praying to one of the D&D gods, Xeris, and then I draw back my hand and
it's too long.
The sky's part and there's sun coming down and it starts to fill my hand with divine power, and I look at my enemy, I say a bunch of words, and I'm like, shut up, dude, just throw the thing on.
Yeah, just say. You just say,
just be cool, man.
You got to be a little cooler about that, and you can have the cool thing, invoking the name of your deity. I like doing
cool
that.
Factor.
There's a cool factor there, but you're right. If you're doing that 3 times in a row, by the 3rd time, it's too much. There's maybe a way to make that description tighter, that you're not going through all of the motions, but you're doing enough that people can understand.
You can always go ahead.
Yeah. So I was going to just say, like, sometimes it's possible to give too many details instead of just one cool detail. Like,
less is more, friends.
Less is more. And that doesn't mean you can't have some nice color commentary, like you say something in Latin or whatever it is. There's some of that I think it's quick enough, and I had
a good player do that. He was really good. I loved it. Every time he said it, I'm like, I'm in it.
Man, I think this is the first time I've watched a warlock playing where it wasn't just like, Eldritch Blast again.
Eldritch Blast. Yeah, no, he did the thing. I liked it.
But he did the thing, and then it was quick. Okay, and everyone after the first few times,
it'd go like that, you know. There's a little,
and then he just had to say the Latin, and it was like, okay, now I know what he's doing.
Like I said, audio and visual cues, like just reaching your hand out like he's casting something. All right, cool. I'm visualizing it now.
I mean, the first time you do that, the first time you summon lightning into your hand, you may want to spice it up a little bit, right? The first time you ever cast fireball, you want to spice it up. So like, that's really cool. You can do that.
Yeah.
And from now on, you don't have to do that. You can just say, I open my palm, and you do the first time you do the big thing. And then the next time it's like
you want to blow it up. Yes. You want to blow it up the first time.
Yeah. Or you can even just do it in like I like it when players do things like they'll speak to the opponent, right? Like they're not, like they'll say like burn in fire or like whatever it is, or be gone undead filth, and then they don't. That's it. That's all they have to say, and that's just the cue that they're turning undead, or that's the cue that they're casting fireball, and then they roll the dice, and the game master's with it enough that he understands. He's like, I know what he's doing. Yeah,
I think what you just said, it's gonna go right by people's heads because it almost went right by mine. What you're saying is you don't need to say you cast fireball. You're talking to the guy while literally casting the spell, and you're rolling the dice, and it's
that's right.
That's what you're saying.
That's right. That's what I'm saying.
Right by someone's head.
Yeah, and I think that I mean that's making a bunch of assumptions. That's assuming that
a lot of
everyone's really okay. He's done this enough that I can read his cues, and I'm giving cues that are clear enough that everyone at the table understands what I'm doing, and I'm not just all of a sudden, wait a second, you did what? Like, that's.
I didn't hear you even say that. It's
Well, that's the other thing.
Should have been paying attention, friend.
Yeah, you got to pay attention. Yeah, and sometimes it's just gonna be a quick thing. Like, for example, I do think that there are times where you don't have to give a huge description, color commentary. It's still can be like, okay, so I approach the lock door, I bend down, get my tools, and start fiddling at the lock. That's fine. Okay, I roll the check. It's you don't have to go into painstaking detail. With my ear next to the door, I listen to the little combs of the lock as I move. No,
unless you want to.
That can be it can be over the top, and
someone might really love playing a rogue. I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
but if I'm not playing the rogue and someone's like doing all that, I like your description. I put my ear up against the. I was kind of digging that actually, but I'm like,
I like the description of. I mean, just try to pretend that you're the camera for just a second, and you just describe what you see your character doing in that moment.
I actually think the key takeaway to this video is less is more. Like you can have a dope description. Here's your description. You just gotta condense into this. Okay, that's all you need.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're the best role player there. Everybody's like, "How is he so good?" It's because everybody's listening to you now. They're not listening to you. Now they're listening to you.
Now they're listening to you. Well, and I had a player do this once that I thought was just brilliant. So he was playing a martial artist type character. He was a luchador or something, right. And he runs up to a card table, a bunch of guys playing cards, bad guys playing cards, poker around the table. You can picture it in your mind. And he describes vaulting over the table and then flying kick at the guy that's just shocked there with his cards in his hands. And the way he described it all, it was just so perfect. And it wasn't long. It was just enough color commentary. And then what happened in the game from then on is that everyone was like, that was really cool.
That was awesome.
Man, I want to do that. And I'm like, well, why aren't you then? All he did was just give a little bit of description instead of just saying, I'm going to go kick that guy.
Inspire others by being a better role player.
Yeah, and all he did was just give a little. It's like, so I put my hand, I put my hand on the table right where their cards are, and I vault over it.
I got it on my head
right in the, awesome. And everyone was like, you could just see everyone in the table because they're like, their lights, the light bulbs are going on. Just that little bit of description. It didn't add more than 10 seconds to his turn, but it was so much more than just I kicked that guy. Like,
you can't do. Yeah, I mean that's like I said. That's 1D. We're trying to be 4D here. That's the goal. Add a little spice to your cookie.
Just a little bit of spice. A little bit of flavor. You got to have some flavor. You don't want to be bland. We don't want bland here.
You don't
more
want your steak
flavorful.
well done, friends. Okay.
No. Yeah,
Well,
you don't want
seasoned and rare.
exactly.
You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
exactly.
That's what a good description is.
Exactly. A good description will be will give that spice just enough so that it's, hey, this is something different, without overcooking that meat. You know, just drying it right out so that it's nothing left. Like like Clark Griswold's turkey when he cuts into it, and it's just dry. It just bursts open. It's empty. It's been dried right out. You know, that kind
There
of
you
thing.
go.
You can't overdo it. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Have I been guilty of overdoing it? Absolutely. I have been guilty of doing that.
We
I
all
would
have.
rather have to dial it back than not have it there at all.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
I'd rather have to dial it back a little bit than to have no description, no extra flavor.
I would 100% rather have someone have this long, obnoxious description, be like, just tone it down a little bit, and then have someone just say, I'm going to attack the guy. I'd rather have this, and then come down to this instead of
just come down a little bit, and that's fine. You can just see how you just come down a little bit, and with some practice, I think you can get pretty good at it too. And you could be thinking about it too, like when you're thinking about your character and how they're interacting in the world, you got to think, well, what would be kind of a cool thing that my character would do? Well, why aren't you doing that? Do you have a finishing move? Do you have a saying? You should have try to think.
You should always have a saying.
You should always have a
saying.
You should always have a saying or a mannerism or something.
Yeah, that's my Calrissian. Remember the name. That's all he ever says because he wants to be remembered by everyone.
He wants to be remembered. Exactly.
That's it.
And so I think playing into that's a 4D move. Like that's someone who's right in there.
4D role playing.
He's being real.
That's how we keep it here real.
We got to keep it real. We got to keep it into that pushing the envelope a little bit. Push it in. Get more. Use that imagination. You've got it. Use the imagination. And the thing about this is, the more you use your imagination for this kind of thing, the better you'll get at it.